What's up, traders? Anthony Crudele here, and in today's video, I'm going to talk about how you can use Bollinger Bands and anchored VWAPs to identify trend reversals. Now, many of you know I talk a lot about anchored VWAPs and I talk a lot about Bollinger Bands as well, but using them together really can be a powerful tool to help identify when a trend is reversing. Now, first, I'm going to talk about what market I'm going to be using them for, and this is the primary market that I trade. That's the E-mini S&P. On TradingView, it's symbol ES1 exclamation point. That's the front month E-mini S&P contract, which is DEECE right now. It's Z for December. I also want to mention that you can go to TradeStation right here on TradingView, and you go to your trading panel and you can click that and you could actually connect your TradeStation account right to TradingView, which I think is really cool because I like to do a lot of my charting on TradingView, and it really helps me manage my positions on TradingView. And then when I'm on TradeStation, and just to learn more about that, you can go to tradestation.com/Anthony. We actually give new accounts 50% off commissions for the lifetime of their account on TradeStation. So you can check that out at tradestation.com/Anthony. Now, I have up an E-mini S&P daily chart. I just have a bar chart up here. I also have Bollinger Bands, which is 20 period, 3 standard deviation. And when you look at this chart, it's pretty basic. It's pretty clean. I don't really keep a lot of other stuff on there when I'm looking for a possibility of trend reversals. One thing I will note is when you're using the Bollinger Bands, I am going to get rid of that middle Bollinger Band. I don't need it. I'm going to use VWAPs. And also for the inputs, I'm going to use a 20 period source OHLC4, which is open, high, low, close times 4. And then you have the standard deviation, which I change to 3. Typically, this is set up as 2, but I changed that to 3. And so that's what I have there. Also, you will see these support and resistance lines. You have the blue for support, yellow for neutral, red for resistance. Those are my beacon levels. It's a free indicator on TradingView. There's a link down below in the description that will take you to TradingView. And if you're in TradingView, you can go there and get it. It's free. It's open source. And I'll show you real quick what it is. And all it is I pull up my fib tool is if I draw from one Bollinger Band peak, you can see up here, to a bottom Bollinger peak down here, you can see that it's 30%, 50%, and 70%. That's how I break down my support and resistance levels. So 30%, depending on whether you're looking at it from the top peak to the bottom or to the bottom to the top, is support, and 50% is neutral. 70%, like I said, if you're looking at it from the bottom to the top or top to bottom, is going to be resistance. And so that's all I look at. And it really helps me frame out what's happening in the market. And I'll explain how I use that also for trend reversals in today's video. Now, I'm going to get rid of the fib tool because we don't need it. And when I get rid of the fib tool, now we have the indicators up here, beacon and 20 period, 3 standard deviation Bollinger Bands, no middle Bollinger Band. Now, I'm going to go and I'm going to click the anchored VWAP. And I use the anchored VWAP in a really specific area here. And one of the tricks when you're anchoring a VWAP is, well, where do I anchor it? Do I anchor it if I'm looking at a stock on an earnings report, or do I anchor it to an index on a high volume, FOMC day or CPI day? It really depends on what you're looking for and on where you anchor the VWAP. For me specifically, when it comes to understanding whether the trend is intact or reversing, instead of using a trend line, I like the VWAP with the Bollinger Bands. And so what I want to do is I want to show you the specific point that I go and I anchor a VWAP. So if you look over here back in August, and one of the things I've discussed a lot on these TradingView videos and on YouTube is when the Bollinger Bands are opening up like a mouth and they're expanding outward, that is indicating range expansion. And that also indicates that the possibility of the current trend to continue. Anytime that the Bollinger Bands are coming inward and that mouth is closing, you see the top is coming in and the bottom is coming in. Let me just take my drawing tool here and show you what I mean by that, because I think some people have actually sent me messages and say, I'm not sure what you mean. Just look right here. Mouth is coming in, and then up top here, as you can see, the mouth right here is coming in, right? And then there's other times where you see the market come in right here, and then the mouth is opening. And then you can see right here that the mouth is starting to open. And that brings me to where I'm going to anchor the VWAP. And so I'm going to take my VWAP, and what I look for is anytime a market starts to come out of a time where the Bollinger Bands were pointing inward and we're in mean reversion, and the Bollinger Bands start to point outward, and the market is starting to hug that Bollinger Band in any specific direction. If you go back to August here, you can see that the Bollinger Band started to open up at this point, and the market started to go lower. I look specifically for that point and I say, okay, the market started to go down here, hugging that Bollinger Band. The Bollinger Band started to revert back in. I anchor a VWAP. And the reason why I do that is because that to me is a turning point from range contraction to range expansion. Okay. So at this point, the market's going lower and the range is expanding. Then the market starts to come back in, and you can see here it comes back to this VWAP in this specific place. And you'll notice that when the market finally closes above that VWAP, some people will look at that and say, oh, well, we're back above that VWAP on that specific day. Is that a time to potentially go long? What I do is I take it a step further. Here's where the Bollinger Bands come in, and they really, really help me with this. Is you can see that the Bollinger Bands at this point were still going outward. See that right there? Then they started to come back inward here. So here we are up top. I'm going to go inside that Bollinger Band, and they start to come back in. And what happens? My beacon indicator, as I discussed briefly at the beginning of the video, all it is a Fibonacci retracement, 70, 30, and 50% from Bollinger Band peaks. But you need to have Bollinger Band peaks. That's important, right? So instead of taking a Fibonacci from your typical price action, from a price high or a price low, I take it from a Bollinger Band peak high to a Bollinger Band peak low. But the Bollinger Bands have to be created. Those peaks have to be created by starting to come back inward. And so you need both the top and the bottom just to start to come back in. And as you can see right here, look what happened. The market actually got above the VWAP, and at that same time, my beacon indicator drew a line, drew the new blue support and resistance levels right at the time that it started to get back above that VWAP. At that specific moment, that is a really strong indication to me here that the trend is possibly reversing. So as you can see right there, you're above my beacon support area, and then we get a close above that anchored VWAP, right? That is a strong buy signal to me, and now indicating that the trend, the current trend that we have, is reversed. And you can see here that's where the market actually took out this downtrend and started to grind back higher. Now, let's take it to the next example. And we're going to get to the present day where I think we're seeing something important kind of panning out right now in the current markets. Let's take a look at the Bollinger Bands here. Bollinger Bands are coming inward. Okay. You see right there, the Bollinger Bands are coming inward right there. Okay. And then the market goes and it dives down from a period of range contraction where you saw the market was steadily climbing a little bit, holding above Bollinger Band, holding above the VWAP and holding above my 50% line. Then the market comes back down. Bollinger Bands start to point outward like this. And you can see that mouth is opening again. So what do? We take our VWAP and we anchor it to that moment in time. Now, when we anchor it to that moment in time, signifying, look at the market is going from contraction to expansion. Let's see what the market starts to do from here. Let's keep an eye on that day as an important day. So as we move the charts here, I'm going to expand a little bit. And as we get a better look at it, now you can see the market has gone down for several sessions. This is going back into really the middle of September all the way to the beginning of October. And then what happens? Once again, that same type of scenario. Bollinger Bands start to come back in. You can see that right here. Bollinger Bands are starting to come back in. Look at what happens with that VWAP. Uncanny how similar it looks. Let's draw an arrow there again. Bollinger Bands come in, we get back above the VWAP. Look what happens. Okay. Market starts to revert back up. Okay. This is extremely important because you're getting double confirmation. You're getting above the VWAP and you're getting above my beacon support using the Bollinger Bands. Now, what I like to look at is from those important moments, look at what happened back from this anchored VWAP moment, right? Look what happened with these highs. Hit it, hit it, hit it. It's also my beacon 50% level and could not get above it. Market starts to go back down below these VWAPs. And look what happens. We go from range contraction, because you can see we were really sideways here, to range expansion again. Let's pull out our drawing tool and look at what we have here, right? Now the Bollinger Bands go from pointing inward to pointing outward again. Let's see that same thing on the top Bollinger Band. Let's take our anchored VWAP tool and let's anchor that at that moment that happens. So what we'll do is we'll anchor it to right there. And so now we have a situation where the market is starting to revert back up as you look at today's session on October 30th. Okay. And you look to see that the Bollinger Bands are still expanding outward. You can see here, outward on the bottom, outward on the top. And this is important because as we start to get near this VWAP, that would indicate to me that this VWAP is still going to be resistance. When does the VWAP become support? When does the VWAP become a significant area of interest to me is when the Bollinger Bands start to come back inward. Because remember, it's a double confirmation. We want to see those Bollinger Bands go back inward like we saw in the past. So what are we looking for in the coming sessions to determine whether or not this recent low is a good low and could potentially be a low we can trade off of? And who knows, it could be the low for the rest of the year or for who knows how long. But we're looking for a low that we as traders can trade off of. We need to see the Bollinger Bands start to come back inward and then regain that point of interest, that VWAP that I anchored back on October 20th, where volatility started to expand. And we look to see if the market could regain it. Then we'll see where the beacon levels are, and then we'll go from there. And what will be two key points moving forward? Look at those previous VWAPs. I like to look at them as the market potentially moves higher. The reason is because they were really critical. If you go back and look here, they were really critical on the long side for the bulls to hold. And here, look at multiple tests when the market failed to go any higher. So it's already been proven throughout the market's reaction that these levels are levels of importance. And that's what's important to us as traders. When a market respects an area, and it goes back to that area, it's always important to take note when it gets back there. And if it gets back there and it doesn't respect it, then you know what? That level doesn't matter. You delete that VWAP or whatever it is you're looking at. But if it continues to respect it, you don't know for how long it's going to respect it. So hopefully today's video helped you understand how and when to anchor in VWAP. Use Bollinger Bands for confirmation to determine whether or not a trend is reversing or not. And then my beacon indicator, which once again is free on TradingView. Trade well, traders.